Hello! Today I'm excited to be trying another of the white wines from the Mullineux family in Swartland in South Africa. And this is a wine labelled as their Granite Chenin Blanc from 2022. It's a single vineyard wine. It's from the Uitklan vineyard. Evidently Uitklan refers to a lane or an avenue of oak trees. The designation Granite refers to the soil type. They have decomposed granite soils here, and this site is the highest altitude site they have growing Chenin Blanc in the Paardeberg region. The vines here were 47 years old when this fruit was picked. So they're mature vines with a good deep root system that's managed to find its way down through the fractures in the rock to find water and to find nutrients, because this is a low vigour soil. It contains few minerals and doesn't have much in the way of water reserves, so that the vine has to work hard to find these. Thankfully, however, now that the vines are well established, they're able to keep a good canopy which gives some shade and allows the fruit to ripen slowly, and the altitude of the vineyard also sort of allows a cooler aspect and allows the fruit to retain acidity and allows it to keep its delicate aromas as it ripens. As I've said in other videos, the rise of Chris and Andrea Mullineux to the ranks of South Africa's leading wineries has been nothing short of spectacular. They started their winery in 2007, and 18 years later, at the beginning of 2025, they've actually been declared Winery of the Year for South Africa by the highly respected John Platter Guide 5 times in those 18 years. Now, the Mullineux have been at the spearhead of a movement to turn Swartland into a quality wine producing region. It's quite a large winemaking region, and it has plenty of mature vines. Evidently in the 1960s, in anticipation of a wine boom, there were widespread plantings here, and although initially the fruit that came from these vineyards went into blends being made by large cooperatives, today there are plenty of mature vineyards giving this sort of low yields and concentrated fruit that talented winemakers can turn into quite exceptional wines. And prices for Swartland wines can generally be quite reasonable. I actually think the terroir series, to which this Granite bottling of Chenin Blanc belongs, is one of the things that have helped put the Mullineux family sort of so squarely on the map. Because Swartland's quite a large region, it has a number of different soil types, be they sort of granite or schist, and they've managed to select vineyards that define these soil types. As a result, I think their wines have been quite important in terms of the region defining itself. Now, the Mullineux farm all their vineyards sustainably, and in the winery, their winemaking approach is to use as little inputs as possible. Now, the fruit for this wine was picked in mid-February. Yields evidently were 4 tonnes per hectare, and that came out to about 24 hectolitres per hectare. That's really quite a low yield. Hand picking went on in the cool of the mornings to ensure that heat wouldn't damage the aromatics of the fruit during the picking process. At the winery, the fruit was whole bunch pressed into barrel. The juice was handled relatively oxidatively, and they believe that approach gives greater stability to the final wine once it's in bottle. The juice was run straight into barrel. Evidently they're using 225 litre French oak barriques. I don't know what, if any, proportion of those were new. And fermentation was allowed to proceed using the natural yeasts that found their way into the winery on the fruit. The Mullineux believe the yeast is an extension of the soils in terms of creating terroir in their wines. So both the alcoholic fermentation and the malolactic conversion are allowed to proceed naturally. And once malolactic conversion was complete, they made a small addition of sulfur dioxide, and that was the only time at which sulfur dioxide has been added to this wine. The wine aged in the barrels for 10 months, and the wine was bottled unfiltered. So let's have a look at it and see what we make of it, shall we? Got a medium to perhaps medium deep yellow colour there. Swirling it, I've seen 2 different numbers here. Technical sheet says this has 14% alcohol, but actually the label only says 12.5%, and I'm inclined to believe the label. Certainly, as the wine isn't particularly throwing tears on the glass, it's just starting to show a little there. I think a wine with 14% would probably be showing quite noticeable tears as I swirl it. So let's see what we make of the aroma, shall we? The aromas seem quite restrained. There's a real mineral saline note there, over notes of sort of perhaps apple, pear, a slight citric lemony note. But yes, it's the mineral touches there that are coming to the fore. So let's taste. The palate is very precise. That's absolutely bone dry, and there really is mouth-watering acidity coming through there. There are toasty notes, and I don't think that's toasty new oak from barrels, but those are the toasty, slightly gunpowdery, gunflint sort of notes that are often produced by the yeast during an indigenous fermentation. There really is that sort of sapid, saline note at the end, where there's some quite good length. The wine's light to medium body, has a slight oily texture, it's rounded, it's got a density without being big and heavy. The alcohol is quite restrained, which confirms to me the label's correct, it's 12.5%. It's allowing citric notes, it's allowing saline notes, giving a gingery hint and some notes of candied peel on a long, fresh and really well-defined finish. If anything, I wonder if the fruit is currently a little closed up, but the wine's balance, its density and the precision that its mouth-watering acidity gives make me think that this is a wine that could probably age for 5 or 6 years yet, and may well really start to come into its own in 2 or 3 years' time. It's got good density, it's got lovely balance, and there's great complexity, but I think the fruit still needs to open a little. The Wine Searcher aggregated critics score for this vintage of this wine is 94 out of 100. I think although this wine is showing really well at the moment, that score really more reflects the fact that I think it will really come into its own in a couple of years' time. It's a wine that displays many of the facets of Chenin Blanc as a variety. It has a lovely complexity and precision. Now, these are not cheap wines, but I'd still argue that actually if this is a wine with a score of 94 out of 100, the pricing for this is still relatively restrained. So that you can make that judgment for yourself, I will leave a link in the notes to the Wine Searcher webpage for this vintage of this wine, and you can see what the pricing is in your market and if it's available near you. That page also gives lots of other information about the producer, the region, the grape variety, the winemaking. There are vintage comparison tables, there's a price history, and you can see what the critics and other users have had to say about the wine. So yes, I think we can say this is a top South African and probably a world-class Chenin Blanc. So in that context, I would argue that this offers some pretty good value for money. But maybe not everybody will agree with me on that one. I like its preciseness, I like its elegance. It's showing the fact that it's coming from a higher altitude vineyard in the sort of the lean, linear style, and with its length and its concentration. It was a wine that I was hoping would impress me, and it has. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, do please press the like button. If you'd like to watch more of these videos, it would be fantastic if you'd sign up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have any comments, please pop those in the comments box below. It would be great to hear your feedback on the wines we're looking at, the tastings we're doing, or anything else that relates to that. If you have friends you think might like to watch the video, please do feel free to pass it on to them. That would be great. Most importantly though, do please try and find some time and come and join us for another video tasting in the very near future, won't you? Thanks again. Bye for now.